Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Dudes and Beer podcast, episode 281 for you tonight. How about that, everybody? Our 5th anniversary last week was fantastic. I want to thank everybody that tuned in. I want to thank everybody that's been tuning in for 5 years, including our audience out in WMLD land, way out there in the Hudson Valley. Hey to all of you guys. Please do not forget, everybody, Dudes and Beer is now officially brought to you by podcastcadet.com. If you are a fan of podcasting like me and want to start up a podcast for yourself, your family, business, church, friends, what have you, stop on by podcastcadet.com today. That is where we can help you, folks. I am one of the owners there. We provide one-on-one advice, everything from technical advice on what equipment to get, how to hook it up, how to start it, how to record, branding, distribution, monetization. We do audits for shows that already exist. Stop on by and check us out today. Podcastcadet.com is the website. Dudes20 is the code that you want to use to save 20% off of that. Our guest tonight is one of the amazing guests that actively called in to us last week for our 5th anniversary and left us a message. Our good friend James Keenan, researcher and author of the new book, The Shapeshifter Scare, which is available on Amazon and other places, I assume. Correct, James? How are you this evening?
Hey, Chris. Doing well. Thanks for having me back on.
Absolutely, man. I remember last time we had you on, we were talking about ancient cataclysms and the stories of ancient cataclysms throughout mankind, the way that they mesh together. And we started kind of getting into a little bit of some of the tribes that lived in, like the Anasazi, things like that, there in the Southwest region. And you mentioned that you were getting ready to go do a new investigation out at the Uintah Basin and out near Skinwalker Ranch. And I was like, you've got to come on. And when I saw that you released Shapeshifter Scare, I immediately went and purchased my online copy of it. Make sure to go on by and check that out, folks. It is great if you've got any youth out there. James really hovers up around the young adult market. But, man, what a great read. And what I love is the fact that you put this research into your book.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fictional author. I'm just now working on my first nonfiction, which is a large part of that's going to include what's taking place out on the Uintah Basin. But I definitely wanted to have that information available in my next fictional novel for children. And the Shapeshifter Scare is part 2 of the UFO and an Alien series that's geared towards, teaching probably from anywhere from ages 9 to 13 about the paranormal, cryptozoology, things of that nature.
Yeah, and what's wild is that area specifically in the Southwest, right there where the two tribes cross over, is rife with stories back to Native American days of what they call the Skinwalker, things like that. It's called Skinwalker Ranch because of a supposed curse placed on it by the Navajo against their opposing tribe who enslaved them regularly. And
yeah, that's the Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, it's that's where it gets its name currently, and before that, it was known as the UFO Ranch. So, I mean, there's just been a lot of strange phenomena taking place in that area for an extremely long amount of time. So far back that it's in petroglyphs from thousands of years ago.
Well, and let's start getting into some of that, because you were, the whole time you were there and posting stuff, I was liking, commenting, loving the stuff that you were posting, and you actually went out to some of these petroglyph sites. Let's kind of start getting into how you came to research this area to begin with, and then what the excursion was all about, James.
Sure. So I really didn't know a whole lot about Skinwalker Ranch. I had actually been to a MUFON meeting where the lecturer was George Knapp, and so I was familiar with it, but really didn't know a whole lot about it. What I was doing was in regards to the cataclysmic events that I research and past lost cultures and civilizations. I track this. One of those ways that I track it is through petroglyphs and pictographs and artifacts from indigenous people of old. And in northeast Utah, there were groups known as the Fremont, the Barrier Canyon, and then this culture that's marked as unknown because there's absolutely nothing known about them.
Yeah.
And their petroglyphs and pictographs are beyond interesting, what takes place in them. So I was focused in on that for my ancient catastrophic events and for lost cultures and civilizations, like tracking the migration of the indigenous giants that were here. And lo and behold, I started getting deeper and deeper into the research and realized that Skinwalker Ranch is just a few miles from all these locations. So then I, shifted gears, obviously, because I'm interested in paranormal and cryptozoology, not just, ancient lost civilizations, advanced civilizations, and things of that nature. And it just, from there, it just boomed. And interesting how so much of what takes place, even as far back as 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, somehow seems to tie into what's happening in and around the ranch.
Yeah, and like we've been saying, the history of the ranch goes on for literally about 100 years, going way back to the original cattle drives, things like that went through the area. And some of the stories that happened there, I recently got the History Channel show. I'm trying to remember the name of it offhand. I think it's What Happened at Skinwalker Ranch, and they're of course going into the history of Robert Bigelow owning the property for many years, and doing research in collusion and working with the federal government. To this day, that research is unknown. Most of it is classified. The rest of it is confidentially marked. So the new owner that has it is out there working on things right now, and he actively has the show on the History Channel, things like that, that's showing quite a bit of anomaly, really strange stuff going on. One of them that's going on is like an energy spot about a mile above the ranch. That's just a field of RF energy that's there. It's strange happenings, and they're trying to nail down if it's geologic. What was some of the stuff that you came across while you were out there on your excursion? Now, granted, you were not necessarily on Skinwalker Ranch itself. You were on adjacent property, but have done quite a bit of research into Skinwalker, things like that. So what was some of the things that you were coming across while you were out there at Blind Frog Ranch?
Yeah, so when you talk about the area, it's not phenomenon, it's phenomena, because there are many different phenomena taking place. And, like I said to begin with, the petroglyphs. So the Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, the show on History Channel, came out at the end of March. And I started I go up quite a bit now, regularly up to northeastern Utah. As a matter of fact, I was just there about 7 weeks ago. And these petroglyphs and pictographs show the phenomena that's taking place today. As a matter of fact, a large portion of my presentation when I'm out at the UFO conferences or the Enlightenment conferences and things of that nature, one of the petroglyphs shows this object in the sky that's obviously mechanical because it has uplift. It's being pushed upward and it's transmitting data out into space. And it's this rotating object in the petroglyphs shooting out this beam of energy, more than likely a transmission out to these marked stars, marked what I would assume is a galaxy. And now all of a sudden they're finding this object that's transmitting all types of frequencies, like you mentioned, RF, maybe some other type of light frequency. Same thing. And what's crazy is it seems to be going in and out of something. And when I say in and out of, from what they've suggested and what it looks like, is almost like a portal of energy in and out. And they've captured this on camera for quite a while. It was seen for several minutes on the show, so I could only imagine how much tape they actually had in order to give us that.
Yeah, and I mean things on video, like straight up beams of light coming out of the Earth into space. Just strange oddities, wild things going on, and like you said, being recorded. Like this stuff it's phenomenal now. Some of the things that are coming out in documentary, like Caroline Corey's new movie Superhuman. Some of the things that are being released, of course, by the Pentagon, slowly, basically light disclosure, soft disclosure on what we know probably is more secret projects than anything truly extraterrestrial or interdimensional that we're dealing with. Not that it didn't come from that, but to even have Robert Bigelow, after owning this property for years, go out on interviews and say, from what I've seen, we are definitely not alone. There is another intelligence going on, and it's here.
Well, even with that, that money that Bigelow was using came from Senator Harry Reid. In that it was either the ATIP or OSAP program. There was $23 million, and a large portion of that $23 million, guess where it went to? It went to Bigelow for Skinwalker Ranch research, and whatever it was, it's still classified.
Yeah, precisely. And that's what's very, very interesting about this new owner that has it, is he is being very open about it. He's gone out to major magazines and done interviews, Vice, all kinds of stuff, to go out and basically be like, yeah, the research is carrying on. We're moving it on to a new level, and we're trying to do it to where it's not all classified or held secret afterward, by basically not including government money in the project.
Right, exactly. And Brandon Fugel is the billionaire that now owns the ranch, and he has a lot of connections. He's connected well with the past people from the Bigelow era. Dr. Eric Green. I'm sure he's far more aware of what took place than what most people know, and he's afforded the public the opportunity to, get tidbits, because there's a lot more going on. And his main researcher is Dr. Eric Bard. He's a physicist who works there. And obviously he has just a huge amount of data that he's been able to acquire during his 4 years there at the ranch working for Brandon. But it's really kind of cool because a lot of people go out there, they witness something, or you're constantly reading about the same stuff in books, but there's very little scientific data or actual scientific research to back up phenomena that happens there, or to be able to provide and afford for the public to see.
Yeah.
And now that's slowly coming out. That's a big part of what I do. Like I use a proton magnetometer, to look into the magnetic anomalies and differences in the area. And part of what I've found kind of goes with what Eric Bard has been leaning towards, with where he shows like these lights or beams of light coming out of the ground in all these certain areas. It goes with my data points, where I have found 6-inch diameter locations all across that area that have just the strangest magnetic readings taking place, and I can't provide an answer as to why it's happening. So it's good to be able to afford, some data points, scientific data points, with the stories that have been out there for at least 40 years now.
Well, and what I like about it more than anything, because I myself have got quite a few of these tools. I mean, you can see some of them, like my Geiger counter and things like that, on the shelf behind me here in the Facebook feed. But the reason I have them is because, I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to look at something and run through everything in the field. I'm just going to be blindly collecting data, which is really one of the best things that you can possibly do, is to go out and just provide raw data. Just raw data. And for you to be coming in as someone who's not a scientist and providing that information to scientists is absolutely invaluable, because you're coming at it from an unbiased point of view. Sure, you're a believer, but you're also not a scientist or somebody in the community with something to, quote, prove or protect in some way, shape, or form, some thought form that might destroy a scientific community. We talk a lot on this show about the religion of science. We spoke with you about that last time you were on, the religion of history and the science of history, and how so many times we do not take into account other things, such as oral histories, that kind of stuff, which should account for a lot.
Well, actually, there's when you're talking about the scientists, the historians, they're protecting something that they've been taught, that was taught to them, and they don't want to change it for obvious reasons. It's going to, affect their livelihood. Yeah. And my being an avocational archaeologist, I affords me the opportunity to be a little bit more vocal about what I find, or, what my hypotheses or theories are.
Precisely.
And being able to still collect data, or being open to both sides allows me to be able to make contact with some of those hard data scientists, and collect things that they're not capable or able to do, just because they don't want to be blown out of the water, as you kind of mentioned, in their profession or their professional circles. Which I get it, I understand. From a monetary standpoint and being able to make a living. Yeah, it's understandable, but it's unfortunate for the majority of the population that. As we're progressing through this life, especially recently, a lot more stuff is being made known.
Exactly.
I mean, just look at the fact that the government released, video on the fact that they came up against a UAP that they have no clue how its performance capability, is managed, and I think we're finally starting to go into that direction, and not just the UFO, ufology realm, but in cryptozoology and the paranormal. People forget that paranormal, that just means it's something that we don't quite understand yet. It could be scientific phenomena that in 100 years from now, they'll look back and laugh at us for having not realized it.
Yeah, I mean, literally the term only means outside of the norm. That's all it means. Doesn't have to mean like of ghostly origin, of alien origin, or anything like that. And I think that's where people really kind of get hung up, James, is that they even with the current you brought up the UAP issue going on right now and the disclosure with that, as did I. And going into that, even it's the fact of are you ready for the possibility that it's not extraterrestrial? Are you ready for that possibility? Because you kind of have to be. You kind of have to be ready for the fact of maybe it was reverse engineered from another technology, but it may be utterly earthbound, and we have the responsibility to, like you were saying, to be scientific. Even though we're believers, we still have to be skeptical about the data that we bring in. Which is where I get into a big issue with a lot of the, quote, paranormal shows on TV. It's one of those like, no, it's not all an orb. It's not. As someone who did paranormal research for a little while, like, you really do have to dispassionately come to your information. And be
absolutely. Well,
go ahead.
And right along that same line, you see a lot of these people, they're carrying this technology and they're throwing out the word EMF, and you ask them, well, what does that stand for? And they can't tell you. And then you ask them, well, the data that you're seeing, explain it to me. They have absolutely no clue what the hell they're looking at.
Yeah, and, precisely. And even the fact of... I got a problem, especially whenever it comes to EVP recordings, because technically, like, the original concept of that was playing with an electromagnetic field. Now, how that electromagnetic field is randomly going to make ones and zeros in that digital recorder, I don't know. Because that's what a digital recorder is doing. See, it's not recording an electromagnetic print of the audio that it's hearing on electromagnetic tape, which can be influenced by an electromagnetic field. It's recording a 1 and 0 representation of the audio it actually heard. So, like, I don't know. I don't... that's where my skeptical mind as an audio engineer immediately goes, is no, it doesn't work that way. I can't magnetically just put ones and zeros on the hard drive of my computer. That would pick up the power it would take to do that would literally destroy the machine. As far as electromagnetic current goes. So it would be strange. So you really do have to be ready to be skeptical about the information that you get from the get-go. And be willing to put all strange things aside and bring it down to something totally within the realm of norm and not paranorm. What was it about some of the readings that you were getting, like you were saying, using the magnetometers, things like that, that really led you to the conclusion of outside of the norm?
Yeah, sure. So, I would go to locations south of Skinwalker Ranch and directly north on the mesa, all the way up to the ridge, the Skinwalker Ridge, and then into the Ute Reservation area where Bottle Hollow Reservoir is. Mm-hmm. And I would take a certain amount of data points, probably about 80, and I would come up with a medium milligauss level of what the what the magnetic field was for the Earth at that area. So if I took 80 readings and I averaged, and it came out to about 48 milligauss. What was happening was I would take a reading probably every 8 to 10 feet in a straight line and do this in maybe 6 to 10 lines. I kept coming across certain areas where the reading of the magnetic reading for the Earth at that location was doing something that it just can't be explained. And what it was it was giving me anywhere from a negative 14 milligauss reading all the way up to 42, which is clearly way, way far away from any average. And then if let's say if I were to get an anomalous reading of 36, but it stayed around 36, well, that would immediately tell me that there's something ferrous or some other metal object causing that in the ground, and maybe that's something that we should look at buried below. That's when I would maybe pull out my GPR and see if I could pick up with the ground penetrating radar. But in these areas, to constantly be having these transient numbers changing from a negative 14 to a 42.
That's huge. In
a location that's average of 40. It's huge because it shouldn't be happening. The magnetic difference of the Earth's core and the reading for the Earth in that location shouldn't be doing that, and it really shouldn't be going into the negatives.
Well, now,
and there were these certain spots in a row. They were all, when I put them into the software, they were in a straight line over 2.4 miles. And I almost certain that once I'm able to get on to the ranch to take the additional readings in that same row or area down that line, I'm going to come across these same I hate using the word anomaly because it can mean so many things, but I'm going to do it a magnetic anomalous read in the same 6-inch diameter locations. So, and it goes a lot with what was being seen on the show as to these certain spots that were transmitting some type of frequency, some type of light frequency out of them.
Yeah, precisely. And that's what it was showing on the show, was that there was literally a beam coming out of these holes in the ground that were maybe big enough for a person to get into. Maybe. And just wild RF readings. Wild. And it wasn't until they started putting the tri-field meters into into coffee cans to isolate the RF that they found out that it was not coming from the ground. It was not coming from any of the surroundings. It was literally coming from the air above them. And they triangulated it to about a mile. And it was just one of those, what is producing an RF field a mile in the air that cannot be seen?
Yeah.
It's just, there's something, like you're saying, you hate using the words anomaly. But there should be nothing there that's putting out an RF field that can be measured in that kind of way. And like you're saying, a magnetic field being measured in that wide of a range. Now, granted, folks, the North Pole right now is going cattywampus. It's moving at like an eighth of a mile a day almost, or 0.08 miles a day. It's crazy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it would be affecting your instrumentation like that. And that's a huge milligauss range to be sweeping between actively when sitting still.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's just another addition when you see everything that's starting to come out as to why the area has this aura of strangeness about it, because until you go up there, there's a lot of disbelievers, and I get it. I've been out in the field all over this world, so I've seen some strange phenomena. But I absolutely love going to the Uintah Basin. just due to the fact that the geological makeup of it is like nowhere else in the world. I mean, it has certain things like gilsonite that are really not found anywhere else. There's a couple locations that have something like it, like in, I believe, in Iran and maybe in Russia, but nothing like the gilsonite that's there on the basin. And you had a massive lake that was there for millions of years. And there's just so many interesting things. I mean, you have east-west running mountains there, and just so many things against the norm. But really, when you look at the historical data that's available in the folklore or the mythology from the Native Americans, the indigenous people there, and these past indigenous cultures that were there thousands of years ago, and it seems like there was some very, very interesting paranormal phenomena and other types of phenomena already happening. And it's just now we're able to record it better than they were.
Well, and that's just it. Our technology gets better every year. It gets more portable every year. To be able to go out in the field now with handheld recorders that are picking up tri-field the way that they are and with the accuracy that they are, to be able to, good God, man, you're talking about going out with ground penetrating radar. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what kind of stuff did you find with the ground penetrating radar? And like I said, you were over at Blind Frog Ranch. Let's talk a little bit about that area, which, like we were saying, is kind of an adjoining property there, right up along the same lines. So let's get into some of the things that you started seeing out in that area.
Yeah, so again, it's just this huge amount of strange. When I was on Blind Frog Ranch, the owner and his son were, nice enough to allow me to be there a full day and night. And we found some very interesting underground caverns and tunnel systems. And the measurements and the readings really made me feel, or if I had to draw any conclusions, I would say they were ancient, and I'm talking archaic timeline mines, that there were mines in operation there. What they were mining, I'm not quite sure. I have a pretty good guess, because what we collected mineral-wise is very interesting, and I'll keep that information private. I don't think they want that put out there. No. What was located?
Do not. I mean, I would have a few guesses just from my geologic knowledge as a rocks and minerals nerd. Just a few guesses as to what's out there. I mean, it's definitely a copper-rich area. There's definitely quite a few radioactive materials that are available pretty near the surface out there. So all kinds of fun stuff to be mined out in that area in Utah. And one of the curious things is it is actually directly northeast upwind from the original Los Alamos test sites, things like that in New Mexico. So that is something else that they have possibly attributed to some of the effects that go on out there, some of the strange issues like irradiated material, mountainsides starting to glow, just all kinds of wild stuff.
Oh yeah, and that's so the owner had told me about he had drilled 75 feet down and found this blue dirt. And apparently that night, the entire, and this was years back, but that the entire hillside glowed in blue.
Wow.
There was UFO phenomena that took place over those mountains as they glowed.
Yeah.
It was a lot of UFOs. And so as I took the technology that I had with me, which was EMF, RF readers. I had GPS. I had long distance ground sensing radar, GPR, ground penetrating radar. What's crazy is I went right above, he had sealed off the hole by putting a 3/4 inch plywood in dirt so that trespassers obviously wouldn't fall into the hole. But all my equipment malfunctioned, wouldn't work, including the GPS directly above this drill site. And then I actually showed this video. You may have seen it. I posted it. As I would walk away 10 feet, the GPS would start working fine. All the other electrical instruments would start coming back on. They would start taking data. I'd walk back over. Same thing. They would lock up. Couldn't pick up the satellites in the sky.
Yeah, and we've got the image of your no fix on the GPS up on screen right now from the image that you sent us. Where you got no GPS signal going on, and for those of you that know out there, for you to have a GPS receiver and not be able to receive a GPS signal, something's going on. Because the whole idea behind that is to be a transponder. It's not like your cell phone where you may have some, random interference or a loss in connection, something like that. That is a direct connection to GPS satellites whenever you have one of those.
Yeah, and you're talking about equipment I had that has never malfunctioned, no matter where I've taken it, and it malfunctioned continuously in the same spot.
Yeah, precisely. And we have Richard Adams chiming in right now with we're getting closer to finding out what is beyond Earth with Starship flying today. And, that's just it. We are constantly finding new paradigms of research, new paradigms of thought when it comes to science, when it comes to,